induction, and it works. There's three things that you need to do. Test, assume, and prove, all right? Test, assume, prove. So with the induction questions, you need to test, you need to assume it, and then you need to prove it. And then there's a final statement, but there's no marks with that, okay? All right, so we're going to start with, what do we test? Well, we test whatever this says, all right? So what's the lowest number that we can test within this range? It's just 1, okay? So n is greater or equal to 1, so we're going to test 1. So let's go. Test for n equals 1. And normally we test the right-hand side, all right? Because it's we want to see if it works that way. So the right-hand side means the right-hand side of the equal sign, okay? So we're going to test n equals 1. So I'm going to substitute that in for n, all right? So 1 squared and then 1 plus 1. So I've just substituted 1 into both those n's, okay? And just reminder that there's a times in between the bracket. So we essentially are going to go 1 times 2, which is actually the first term here. Can you see that that's the first term? So that's really good news for us, because then we can say equals left-hand side. And with any proof, you always want to go left-hand side equals right-hand side at the end, or right-hand side equals left-hand side, okay? So now we make a concluding statement, therefore true for n equals 1, okay? Now, at this point, we've got 1 mark for our HSC. So this is probably one of the easiest marks that you will get in the exam. So please do it. Just substitute the first value that you can get, all right? Just be aware of a couple of language. So when it says all positive integers, it means the same thing as this, all right? So even if it doesn't have like a domain of sorts, like I'm going to go call it a domain, we're not graphing, but yeah, if it says something like that, it's normally 1, and then just test it and see if it's true. So you're 1 mark in, you've got it. Got it in the bag, we can move on. All right, let's work on the second mark. The second part of it, remember, is test, assume, prove. The assume part has no marks, but it sets you up for success, all right? So we're going to assume true for n equals k. All right. And now all we're going to do is copy this line, and we're going to replace our n's with k's. All right. That's all we're going to do. So don't try to do any maths. Let's just copy it all as it is. And we're replacing n with k. All right. So I'm going to do that. 1 times 2 plus times 5 plus 3 times 8 plus ... plus. And now I'm changing that n to a k. 3k minus 1 is equal to k squared k plus 1, all right? Now, I'm not sure what your teacher taught you, but I'm going to put a little asterisk next to this, all right, because we're going to refer to it, and that will be the induction process, all right? So we've tested. I'm going to put the acronym up here. So we've done that. We assumed now, and now we need to prove, okay? So that's the third and final step. So I'm going to draw a line down here, and I'm going to do the final step. I might start down here. So prove for n equals k plus 1, all right? So now we're going to do the same thing, except we're substituting in k plus 1. Now, I want you to do one thing for me first, all right? I need you to write everything in the left-hand side. Everything. Don't change a thing, okay? So I'm going to do that. 1 times 2 plus 2 times 5 plus 3 times 8 plus ... plus k, 3k minus 1, all right? So I haven't changed a thing from my n equals k assumption, all right? And now I'm going to put one extra term. I'm going to change colors so you can see it. One extra term, and this is my k plus 1 term. Now, the reason why I'm making a big deal about this is that often students forget to put this term in when they put their k plus 1, and then the induction doesn't work as well. All right, so write everything in, except now we're adding one more. So I'm going to go k plus 1, 3, k plus 1. So now I'm substituting k into an extra term, k plus 1 into k minus 1. And this equals, I haven't given myself enough space. Now I'm going to substitute k plus 1 into both of these. That's 1 squared, and that's going to be k plus 1 plus 1. All right. Now I need to clean that up a little bit. So let's rewrite that. 1 times 2 plus 2 times. So all I'm doing in this step is cleaning it up so I can use it later on. All right, plus k, 3k minus 1, plus, and I'm going to leave k plus 1 there. Now this thing, see how I'm going to ski jump that or expand the brackets? So there's going to be, if I write underneath, that's going to be 3k plus 3 under there if I expand it. So here I'm going to have 3k, and then that'll be 3 minus this 1. So it's going to be 3k plus 2. Okay. What I'll do is I'm going to move this a bit to that side, and then I'll just get rid of some of this. Yeah. I'll put a dodgy line down here. Okay. And that equals, and now I'm going to work on this side. And I think that was k plus 1 there. K plus 1 squared. So that will be k plus 1 squared. And then this one, that's k plus 1 plus 1. So it's going to be k plus 2. So k plus 2. Any questions there? No. All good? Now here's your second mark. Once you've done this, you've got 2 marks out of 3. Now, hopefully you get these 2 marks already. All right, so you'll get an induction question. It'll be worth 3 marks. 2 out of 3 marks you should walk in your pocket and you should just deliver them. All right. I haven't done anything excruciating. All I've done is followed a process. I've done the test, assume, prove. Okay. Now the 3rd mark is probably the trickiest mark. It's because we actually need to prove this thing. And what do we need to prove? We need to prove that the left-hand side, so this thing, that's what the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side, is equal to that, okay? So now this is our 3rd mark that we're working on, all right? So 1 times 2 plus 2 times 5, 3 times 8. Okay. Now the next step is where I do my induction. All right. So instead of this, oh, I went too far. Instead of this whole thing, I can use this substitution, the assumption spot that I did here. See how it's the same thing as what I'm highlighting here? So I'm going to replace that with this. Okay. So it's not going anywhere. I'm just doing a simple substitution. So this equals, so I'm replacing that I've highlighted as k squared, k plus 1. And then I'm going to add this bit on because I haven't done any substitution with that. So now I'm just going to let the marker know where I got it from. So I'm going to go, because that's what I called this. Remember, I called that line that. And I'm just going to go by induction. All right. So that's our mathematical induction step. All right. The next thing we need to do is solve it. So we need to make it look like this guy here. This guy or girl. There. And what we look for is common factors. So common factor, I can see there's k plus 1 here and there's k plus 1 there. So that's what I'm going to take out to the front. Okay. So let's go k plus 1, take it out the front. I'm going to open a square bracket. You don't need to put square bracket. You can keep it round. I'm just doing that because I'm a teacher. And so what I've got left there is this k squared. So I'm going to put k squared. And what I've got left on this other side is 3k plus 2. So I'm going to go 3k plus 2. Any questions with that? Now, this is just a quadratic. We're going to play magic numbers with it or factorize it. If I look at this term, factors of that add up to 3, it's going to be 2 and 1, isn't it? So we've got k plus 2, k plus 1. And this is really good because I've got k plus 2. I wrote it wrong, didn't I? Will knows this, but sometimes I write things wrong. So just be aware of that. K plus 1, there's 2 of them, so I'm going to square them. And then I'm just going to put this as it is there. Now, this is really good news. Why is it really good news?
Equals right-hand side.
It equals right-hand side and we're done. Okay. Side as required. Now, this last step has 0 marks, but it's really important because we need to put it all together. Now, in the past, they used to write massive essays here, so that's why they took away the mark. So all we're going to do is just write this statement. Write this statement always. Therefore, true by mathematical induction. And just write whatever your thing was at the start for n equals greater than or equal to 1.